sort of 5th Avenue and 23rd, it doesn't make sense because the commuter buses.
That's looking uptown now.
Yes.
Okay.
This is looking uptown. So Broadway's coming south.
Yep.
This is 2-3. This is 2-2. 5th Avenue's back here.
Okay, got it.
So the commuter buses come down 5th Avenue, and they sort of slide onto this little piece of Broadway, and then they turn left. They can't fit, if you made them turn left from 5th Avenue, they can't really do that. That would be sort of a disaster for the pedestrians here. They have to do this. So this section between the park and the plaza isn't really feasible, but this section, because we want Broadway to just be local traffic, isn't sort of off the table. It's something we want to work with.
So is that something that you would look at after you done this plan?
Well, it's not part of our original proposal. We don't normally have community boards ask us to close the street, but we can look closer at it if you do ask. But we want to work with sort of our partners up in that area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm also from the
Can you
building. I just
stand up and introduce yourself, please?
Paul Yelamek. I just had two questions, clarity questions. So is Broadway from 23rd to Union Square, is that going to be a one-way lane now? Or is that still going to be a two-lane street?
It's existing one-way southbound with 2 lanes.
So
The proposed will be one lane, plus left turn lanes, still in one direction.
One lane from 23rd down to
Yes.
18th. And then 17th to 18th will have a lane that goes around from 18th to 17th downtown, right? So the fire truck could still turn right
Correct.
and wrap around to the west side.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yes.
The fire trucks can always travel through all of these areas that are not open to any other vehicles.
And my
It's a
last
rule.
question is just to complement what Kate said, is there any thought about, instead of closing the entire street from 23rd to 18th, actually doing it based on certain hours of the day? So, during maybe, 9 to 5, you could keep it open, but in the evenings or something, so that you could actually create some hybrid situation where it isn't like a 24-hour period where cars are coming down that path and making a left-hand turn on 18th.
So you're saying allow,
Close it off during certain parts
What
of
do
the
you
day.
mean by it? Which part?
From 18th to 23rd on Broadway. Basically making it pedestrian at certain parts of the day. So like weekends, for example.
What we would want to do is not, what we've typically done is at the squares, to do like the full closure, and then preserve, for the smaller buildings, local access, on the street. And I don't think we're at the point where sort of, but it's not sort of inconceivable to do sort of more full pedestrianization here, but I don't think, there would be a level of ambiguity. The problem with doing a street like Union Square West is almost taken over by pedestrians already. So to do this sort of thing where the morning the trucks get to come in and deliver, and then it has a French barricade, and that sort of works. To do that with a street like Broadway, where sort of for some hours of the day everyone's sort of taking over the street, and then other hours of the day it's sort of open to traffic, would be probably problematic.
Just the last question, after these things get implemented, to the extent they're implemented the way you're envisioning, what's the process for coming back together to readjust? You made some good comments about we're constantly readjusting, but what's the process for collaborating and giving input about what's actually happening day to day on the ground based on what we're seeing out of our window?
Yeah, we usually look to the community board to provide us with guidance on when to come back. Often we come back in 3 months, come back in 6 months, depending on the project. But we would publicize that we are coming in for comments and try to get a room full of people like this and give feedback on, say, safety improvements, cyclist use, traffic congestion, etc. Give you all the information and get back feedback.
Where do we see that? Where do we see how do we find out about that stuff?
Well, there'll be public notification, and in fact, we did that with the Green Light for Midtown program, and certainly, we have found the DOT to be very responsive and very open to having a follow-up discussion to see if in fact all the needs and concerns of the community are being met, because obviously we want that as well. So yeah, we would build that into a resolution to make sure that there is a reevaluation and to make whatever tweaks are necessary to, you know, in case the concern that was expressed here tonight has not been satisfactorily addressed.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I don't want to give the impression that we sort of do something and walk away for 3 months and wait for the meeting. I mean, we get input all sorts of ways. It might be the district manager emailing us, people going on our website, people calling Margaret, and we're sort of out there getting, in basically every form of input we have to react to. You write a letter, you make phone calls, send an email, all of it sort of gets sort of dealt with. But with this, we would be actively sort of evaluating it ourselves, along with getting sort of the input.
And you could also, of course, check the cb5 website. Notification is there, and you know, I would encourage everyone here to check that regularly for updates regarding this and other relevant issues. If there were other questions, yes, sir. You, sir, in the back.
Mitchell Falber from ABC Carpenter and Home. Just to make sure that I understand properly, you don't envision any changes with regard to deliveries and receivings on 18th Street, since there will be much more traffic apparently, or perhaps not, with regard to our ability to do our shippings and receivings on the 18th Street side, north side of the street, actually.
Right, as of right now, we're not planning on changing the parking regulations, with the exception of the turn lane as discussed.
All the way up by Park Avenue South.
Right, potentially, parking regulations could be changed at some time. Right now, we're not planning it.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
You mentioned that.
Can you just introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, James Henry. I'm a resident of 222 Park Avenue South. You mentioned turning on South Broadway to be able to allow for people to turn onto 18th Street, but maybe I'm misunderstanding. Is that the only option for traffic at that point? Where would anybody else go?
Yeah, there would be no more through traffic to go straight onto 17th Street. The key, so any traffic that is on Broadway between 19th and 18th would be turning left,
So essentially the whole street becomes a left turn lane.
essentially. Yeah.
And then you just mentioned parking regulations on 18th Street. I mean, the gentleman here obviously representing a business and us representing residents. I mean, that is a double, that is parking on both sides of the street in addition to additional parking of people doing deliveries and dropping off stuff at businesses or various businesses along the street. And you had mentioned there's no plans to change any parking regulations on 18th Street?
Well,
No.
there can be, but at this moment, we have not done that.
And the final, actually, two more, I'm sorry. At Park Avenue South and 18th Street, I mean, if anybody's been around that intersection on the weekends, that probably is one of the worst intersections